Hello, everyone. I am honored to welcome you to this webinar. My name is Janusz. I'm going to be the host of today's webinar. And my partner in crime is Fernando from HUAWEI. We're very happy to welcome you here. Let me introduce myself in the meantime. First, my name is Janusz again. I'm working at Bitrise as a partner manager. My main priority is working on creating high impact partnerships and relationships with tech partners, building integrations with these tech partners such as HUAWEI. And I'm extremely excited about this opportunity that we unlock for developers around the world. And I can't wait to show you the ins and outs of how this Bitrise and HUAWEI integration works. And of course, this couldn't be possible without the tireless work of a good friend and partner in crime, Fernando Prieto, who's a developer advocate at HUAWEI with extensive experience in all things mobile development. He has worked on mobile projects at startups, at enterprise companies, agencies in the US, in Europe. So I think he's got a good chunk of experience about the whole Android ecosystem and every spectrum of the workforce. So today, I'll first talk about alternative app stores as an opportunity in general. I'll show you what we have found serving hundreds of developers who are using Bitrise today and discuss this timely and interesting opportunity. And afterwards, when I'm done with the whys of the topic, Fernando will take the virtual stage and focus on the how. So we'll show you how to use the deploy to AppGallery step on Bitrise to automatically deploy your apps that will essentially take care of deployment for you automatically. So during the event, if you've got any questions, feel free to use the chat or the Q&A tool built into Zoom. We'll take a few minutes at the end of the presentation to answer those questions. So let's talk about this opportunity. There's Apple's App Store and Google's Play Store. That's where the majority of developers deploy to because that's where their audience is. But that's not the only place, and it's just not like entirely true, and they don't have to be the only logical choices to distribute your apps to. There are two categories of alternative app stores. There's a number of smaller niche stores dedicated to a very specific audience. So, let's say gaming, for example. And then there are these larger app stores operated by OEMs, original equipment manufacturers. This latter category is the one that has seen particularly massive growth recently in the past few years. And they saw Google unable to offer Google Play services to Chinese manufacturers. These manufacturers are investing right now heavily into developing their own Android forks and their own unique app stores. These own app stores are now offered on phones sold around the world by brands like Xiaomi, Oppo, Huawei, and plenty others. They're also joined by other manufacturers that want to better control the app's experience. And these could include Samsung Galaxy Store or Amazon's own app store. There's always been a sizable opportunity related to these alternative app stores with close to 1 billion mobile devices in circulation. The Chinese market alone is a compelling reason to deploy apps to these app stores operated by these Chinese manufacturers. The smartphone market is dominated by these manufacturers and their app stores. And their dominance, if you can take a look at this graph, their dominance is growing over time. And with the combined audience of it's estimated that 1 to 2 billion users worldwide, alternative app stores have progressed to a point where they seem simply too big to be ignored. So what are developers doing today to capture this opportunity? To get a better understanding of how developers are approaching these alternative app stores, they've run a survey on mobile developers, and we did that with two groups of developers. One was a group of developers who are using Bitrise right now, and a group of developers who don't. So, to get a better understanding and unbiased opinion. Across both of these groups, only 8% of Android developers said that they regularly deploy to one or more alternative app stores. 73% of them have never done so, and only 9% stopped deploying to them after having initially tried. So they tried it, they started to do it, but they stopped. Interestingly enough, out of these developers who are deploying to alternative app stores, 67% reporting doing so manually, just for those app stores where they expect to find the necessary traction and their audience within that app store. And when we asked why developers weren't publishing in these alternative app stores, the majority of them mentioned the effort that needs to be done, the effort involved. And there were a lot of people who just didn't see or understand the potential upside of doing so. And there were a little over 5% of these people who were just tied to a company policy. So they couldn't even try deploying to these stores. So for most developers, the return on investment just isn't clear enough for publishing to these alternative stores. There are several ways to start publishing to these marketplaces. One of those is working with a publishing partner, where you don't have to do the manual work yourself, but the partner who you're working with, they will take a revenue cut on top of the share that you're already losing to the App Store operator. So it's usually not the best experience, best choice. Then there are publishing portals where you just work once and you can deploy to many places at once. You can get aggregated statistics for your app's performance across all of those marketplaces. But arguably, above all, the easiest way to deploy to these places is integrating this deployment process into your CI/CD workflow. The same process, the same workflow that can build and submit your app to Google Play, could build and submit your app to these alternative app stores with little to no work required. Of course, you have to sign up as a developer. You have to have a developer account. You have to set up the automation once. But after this initial setup, it's going to be automatically done for you when you want to deploy. Now, Huawei, with the goal in mind to create its own OS and own app ecosystem, Huawei was the first one to form a partnership with Bitrise to create the first verified step in this deployment category. Ever since we released the deploy to AppGallery step on Bitrise, we have seen companies big and small deploy automatically to AppGallery, and we've seen them generating tens to hundreds of thousands of installs for each and every of these apps and every customers. Admittedly, your app has to be great. Your brand has to be somewhat popular. This is not a shortcut. Don't consider that as such. The types of companies who saw the biggest number of new users on AppGallery are well-known brands. They've been around for long. They're well-known companies. But we have also seen startups launch their AppGallery presence with the Bitrise step, and they got to tens of thousands of new users in this new marketplace in a really short amount of time, in like weeks and months. So to sum it up, all in all, I firmly believe that this is an opportunity that most developers need to consider, at least, if they're looking to grow their app. So with that in mind, I'd like to pass it on to Fernando and ask him to take over the virtual stage, take the screen and walk us through the hows, how to set it up, how to work with AppGallery, how to use the verified step.
Thank you everyone for joining today, and thank you Janos for this first presentation. Has been great, really good introduction. So now we have a good picture of what Bitrise means in this whole partnership. Today, what I'm gonna start with is I'm gonna explain some of the highlights that I've been, let's say I've been living the last few months since I created this partnership, or I proposed it, until there was something in production and people were started to use. So the agenda for today is going to be first my bio. Later I'm going to show some basic flow about the continuous integration and deployment, how the partnership has started and why the partnership has started, what the blue bats means, some tutorials already available online, and the YML file. What is that? Why do you need that for the step? What do you need to understand if you want to start with one of them, or you want to modify any existing one? Later, I'm going to proceed with a live demo, as a quick one. So we're going to see how to deploy an app in AppGallery. We will finalize the whole thing with some questions and answers, if there is so many. So this is myself, Fernando Prieto. I'm a Spanish developer living in London for 4 years. I'm developer advocate at Huawei. My whole background is Android developer. I started my career as engineer developing more backend. But soon I changed my job to start working professionally as Android developer from Spain. As Janos mentioned before, I've been working in different startups, tech companies. I've been also working in a startup from San Francisco, working remotely. Later on, I moved to London, where I started working still for this startup, but at the same time, I was working for a digital agency. So working for really big clients and developing so many different apps. So it's good because I got the opportunity to know many things in the Android spectrum. So I'm Kotlin lover. You can find me on GitHub as Fer Prieto, really easy. So this is the basic continuous integration or deployment flow. I'm gonna explain this. Many of you for sure know this stuff already, but I think it's interesting to explain from the perspective to where I found this niche and where I could work on. So everyone or most of the developers have to allocate some repository somewhere rather than having it locally. So in this case, in this picture, we can find GitHub, which is a place where you can allocate your repository or your code base. This code base can be connected to some serverless system. In this case, it's going to be Bitrise and is the CI/CD. And in this CI/CD is where you can set different tasks to automate things, to you can set up stuff to control how your pull requests are being managed, if they're following certain rules. And you could also set some outputs. So in this case, I selected this Slack as an output where you can show the results of what your task were already developed on Bitrise. What you can find also is that in these tasks, some of them could be UI testing or unit testing, and some of others could be deploying in some platform. In this case is AppGallery, which is the Huawei platform. So that's how everything started. So suddenly I contacted Bitrise, and Janos was the person who was really interested in helping me out. He started supporting from the second zero. It was good because I had a need, and this need was the step creation. What I needed is an official step why I needed this, because at some point I was working in some projects where I needed to give this kind of support to some of my clients. So I'm Android developer and I'm developer advocate at Huawei. But one of my tasks is also giving solutions engineering support. And that means that sometimes I have to deal with some explanations about how to deploy stuff, or giving them support about how to integrate different technologies in their apps already developed in other platforms. So in this case, what I needed to do is facilitating this work about automating this deployment rather than doing everything manually. Because at the end, if you have some processes in the background behind the scenes, you are trying to deploy everything, rolling out some versions every day or every week. You need someone who has to do everything manually at the end. It's something that doesn't work. So what I tried to find was the way to use our public APIs in this case was the one to deploy. I found that there was something already created in the Bitrise platform. That was a third-party contributor step. That means that it was a group of developers located in Poland. So what I try to do is supporting them. I try to give them some benefits from Huawei, giving them the opportunity of continuing this development, but instead of being a third-party contribution, it was going to be a verified step. That means that they had to maintain it, and they had to do other stuff. At some point, they didn't want to continue through this path, so I had to take over. Even though I didn't have any knowledge about how to develop any step, I had to do myself. And yeah, I got some good knowledge, some good learnings, and yeah, these insights along the way. And it was a really positive path, actually. So at the beginning of December, that was when I was contacting these people. At the end of December, I already had something stable. I uploaded on Bitrise. So they approved it. I think that was nearly Christmas. And in the first week of January, they approved it. So they approved this step as a verified one. And that means that they gave us this blue badge, which means that it gives you the sign of trustability. And also you are the one who has to give that maintenance to, let's say, forever, because you have to give that support to your users. So I thought it was really safe to say that, yeah, I was gonna take this seriously. So I was gonna give that maintainability. Obviously, with these blue badge, you give that security about what you are offering to the developers in this case, because seeing this blue badge, you know that there is no malicious code behind the scenes or any other malware. And also it's consistent and it's high quality. So the tutorials available at the moment, they are the ones I've posted here. The one I created firstly was the one in Medium. So the one in Medium is related to the first release I created, which doesn't have all of the features I created after. But you can find another two videos. One is on the Bitrise channel, and the other one is in the Huawei developers channel, where you can find the rest of features I've been releasing the last few months. So at the moment, what you can do is that you can develop an app, and suddenly you can, when you use this step, you can deploy your app on AppGallery as a draft, or you can deploy it directly. That means that you're gonna send your APK for review to the headquarters in China, in the Huawei's headquarters, and they're gonna review your app directly. Also, you can do another thing, which is rolling out your version progressively. So with certain percentage, you're gonna roll out this version for just a limited amount of users. And yeah, we're gonna see more details. I'm gonna dive deeply into other details right now. But this is mainly the best sources where you can get some details. Also, the whole code base is available in my GitHub, so you can check it. Even if you find there is some improvement to do or any other thing, you can find it. And even you can find any other better solution to do, you can create any pull request. I'll be really happy to review it. This is the YML file that I mentioned at the beginning. Let's say this is the skeleton of your workflow, where you can see all of the details of your workflow with some of the environment variables. So you can see some of the stuff is already protected because you can link some of the values in other way, which is the secrets. We're gonna see what that means shortly. Yeah, and basically this is the whole thing that Bitrise is gonna show in a really nice UI. And it's good because if you don't understand this kind of document at the beginning, because sometimes you are not familiar with these structures, you can find the UI easily. We're gonna see how to configure the whole thing without knowing about the whole structure. Everything is gonna make sense later. Right, so the first thing we're gonna do is, so we are in Bitrise right now. Let's start from the beginning. So this is the dashboard that you can find when you open your Bitrise account. In this case, I've got some projects already linked with Bitrise. When you add a new app, I'm not gonna add a new app because I'm just gonna skip these steps. But when you add your app linked in any repository in GitHub, in GitLab, or any other Git, you can follow the steps, and it's gonna recognize which kind of project is. If it's a mobile project and it's iOS or it's Android or any Flutter or any other stuff, it's gonna be recognized by Bitrise, which is good. So that means that when it's recognized, it's gonna put your project in a workflow automatically, and it's gonna give you the default extractor for those kind of projects. So in this case, we're gonna select one app that I've got published already on AppGallery, and it's called Disclosure app. So this, well, I've got some, this panel is where you see the result of some task that I already did. We're gonna go directly to the workflow, which is the important bit today. So what we can see here is that usually when you import your project from GitHub, and is recognized as an Android project, it's gonna create this primary workflow. And this primary workflow is gonna have some steps, which basically there are scripts already set up for your project, and you just can reuse them. In this case, what I'm gonna do is, well, I've got, you can define different workflows. You can work with the primary, or you can work with different ones. In this case, I've got one for deployment. This one for deployment, I'm gonna skip some of the details, but I'm gonna show exactly what is more important. So usually in a workflow, what you can have is when you create so when you are running something you're gonna deploy, obviously you wanna test it. So you're gonna have your unit tests task here. So there is a step specific for unit tests. You're gonna have also for UI tests, you can have even for lint. So you can check any stuff in your project, even security stuff, you can check many things. And also you can create your own one. And simply by adding any step you find here, you can drag and drop, and it's how you import them in your workflow. So you can even create a script on JavaScript or whatever. So let's find one. We're not gonna add any one today, but let's see all. You can add a script runner, so you can add even your code directly there. So today we're gonna do a bit more simple. So we're gonna find just the necessary ones to deploy something, which in this case is the one to download the dependencies, the Android dependencies. Later we're gonna have a Gradle runner, in this Gradle runner, we're gonna see what we run. So we run a task, which is the assemble release, and is the one we need to create this APK. And later what we need is one to sign our APK, right? So to sign our APK, what we need is some parameters. So it's a key store. So there are some basic parameters that we already familiar with. So we need to just import them. In my case, they are already in this section in secrets. So as soon as you fill them out on secrets, you can sync them with this way. Well, in code signing is in this case. So they have a specific section for code signing, but in secrets, you can add any alias or anything you need to protect. You can add them there rather than creating adding the text here, because it could be exposure for people that you don't want to expose to. So what that means is that maybe you create this project on Bitrise and 3 people in your project has got access to this, but just one of them has got the credentials. So you can protect those credentials by adding them in the secrets. So they are gonna see just the alias this way. So it's just a variable that is linked with the secret section. So what I mentioned is that this one was the step to sign our APK. Well, these two, I'm gonna skip them, but basically the general explanation is that it's gonna optimize, it's gonna reuse the cache that we've been using in other processes before this one. So let's say it's gonna run a bit faster because it's caching some stuff. And the important bit today is this one, obviously, is the deploy to AppGallery. We're gonna try to use the latest one. Sticking to the latest one is the important bit, because I've been creating some fixes, some other features that I mentioned, which we're gonna check right now. So we have, if I'm not wrong, there are 6 required fields that we need to fill out. So these fields, some of them should be just by default. So the file path, I usually leave, I usually leave something dropped here in my room. I usually leave the one that Bitrise gives you from the previous step. So from this step, when the app is signed, it's gonna save the stuff in this variable in the Bitrise APK path. The file name, I usually have the app release plus the build number, which gives you that clue of which was the build that generated this one. So later it's easy to identify if there is something that didn't make a lot of sense. You can find it easily. The app ID, client ID, and the key. These 3 things are from the AppGallery. I'm gonna show them in a bit. So you just have to copy and paste there. And this one, the release type, this is one of the things I was mentioning before. So we can release in 2 ways. We can release as entire network, which means that all of your users will have this new release early when it's approved in Huawei. Or we can release by phase. By phase means like we're gonna roll out the new release progressively. So what that means is as soon as Huawei approves your release, it's gonna roll out with a certain percentage that we can set in here. So so if we don't set anything in the phase mode, so in this phase section, and we have selected this, probably our build is gonna fail, because we need to set with date other parameters in order to make it work. So today is 30th, isn't it? Yeah, so today is 30th. So it's gonna run, let's say it's gonna start the release. It's not really, it's not gonna be rolled out today because Huawei needs to approve it. But in a realistic scene, we will need to say, for example, the 5 days after or 2 days after, something like that. So let's say the start of the release will be today at 30th, and the end is gonna be, okay, let's say the 1st of October at this time, 8:20. This is the phase release percentage. That's something I mentioned as well. So this is the percentage is gonna be rolled out to. Okay, and this is the release, and we can add a description, it's not necessary, but let's say release for this demo. So we save the changes, and this configuration should be all right. So it's already set up. So if we see the section I mentioned before, this is where the section where you can link some variables, no one would see the values, which is good when you work with more people in the same project. Same as the code signing. So the code signing, you can import your key store. You can also write the password of everything of your key store. One thing I wanted to highlight today is the triggers, because there is something really interesting, which takes 2 seconds to configure it, and we're gonna use it today. So we have these 3 sections, which means that if there is a push, this workflow is gonna be triggered, or if there is a pull request, or if there is a tag. So in this case, if we select the tag, and we tag our version with this button saying version something dot something dot something, whenever we create that tag in GitHub, in this case, we're gonna see how our workflow is gonna trigger this word. So the workflow we were configuring is gonna be triggered, and everything is gonna start, all of the steps. So yeah, let's check. So this is already set up. I don't have to save anything here. So let's go to disclosure. So here, disclosure is the, sorry, let's go to GitHub where I've got my disclosure app. This is the repository. So I've got a release already created in May. Let's create a new one. So if we create a new release from here, you can do it from the command line, or you can do it here. I prefer to show it today here because everything is gonna be more graphic. So if today I create one that says version 3.404, so we said before v something dot something dot something. This is gonna be created. And now let's add some text just to identify it. Release for this demo. Yeah, and we publish this release. This is gonna publish the release with the latest code already merged into master. So yeah, we have a new release here. Now if we see our Bitrise, we should see something running. Yeah, so we're running this. So this got triggered, our deploy workflow. We can see the logs here. One thing I did in the last fix that I uploaded is creating some nicer logs, because before was a bit difficult to identify some of the steps I was running. So in the meantime, well, I'm gonna show. So this is gonna take around, let's say, I think easily 10 minutes or so. So let's see on AppGallery Connect. This is how AppGallery Connect looks like. When you go to your app profile, you can see this this whole dashboard. And in this dashboard is where you can set up a new version. So here we can see I have got one already released. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sadly appears in Chinese, obviously, but it's by default sometimes. Doesn't matter. We can change the language. Give me just a sec. Right, so we have one release already. The one we're gonna release automatically, this is another one I already did just testing. So as soon as our Bitrise flow finishes the job, we're gonna see a new one here. What we selected is created by face. So we're gonna see there is one submitted and it's in review. It's in review for Huawei. As soon as the build is already in review, we can see also the message we added for the description for that phase and the percentage we selected for the rollout. So this is gonna take some time. So maybe we can even speak about any other details. So one thing I wanted to highlight here. Let me select on Bitrise. Yeah, so the creation of this step wasn't really tough, just because you just need to have some knowledge about the API you want to use for the case. Also, if you are not familiar with JavaScript, you can also use Go, which is the other option to develop any step. In my case, my experience with Go was 0, so I opted to use the JavaScript option. They use a framework which is shell script. It's basically just a script using curls. So you do some calls to search an API, and you just have to manage whatever you retrieve from the API. The difficult bit was maybe the lack of knowledge about the shell script. So I had to do many tests about the conditions I was setting, and sometimes I found some particularities about the conditions, because on my Bitrise in my laptop was working well, and sadly when I was trying in production it didn't work, and that was because I realized that shell script has a different behavior depending on where you run it. So in Mac OS works with some lexic, and in Linux, which is the machine I used in my project, you can select so in Bitrise you can select different types of machines. Some of them are more optimized for different platforms. So in my case, I didn't mind if is any Unix one was going to be the one chosen. So I found that Mac and Linux was different, the result. So I had to just change some bits on my code. It was pretty easy later to test. They offer you a tool to test everything locally on the command line, which is really handy. I think it took me some hours during 5 days or so. And they give you a lot of support. Even if you need someone to help you out, they can even give you personal support, which I think is one of the best opportunities to develop anything for CI/CD, because you can learn so much, and having someone behind the scenes also supporting you. All right, so we just seen the job has been successful. So let's see firstly just the logs. Should be, so here let's review what happened. So we downloaded the dependencies, we run our assemble release. When we have the APK, we sign the APK with our configuration. Later, well, we clean the cache or anything we needed to do. Here, this is what we had. So our step is working well. I selected some verbose logs, so we can see quite a lot of stuff from the API calls, the tokens and everything. I added some emojis in the latest version, which is a bit more friendly. Here we can see the results. So we have submitted for review. So let's check now. Let's head over to Bitrise, to AppGallery. And now if I refresh the page, we can see there is, before was canceled because it was a previous one. Now we can see there is one in review. So this one is the one already sent from, we can see here. So this is the version, the 3.04. We could also see something interesting is here. This is the phase release we selected from Bitrise. This when it's going to be effective, as we said. This is the dates we selected, and the release percentage. This is the text. So yeah, this is pretty much everything. You've seen, I said it was going to take 10 minutes, but it took quite less. So happy to see this result. I hope you can identify this as something really straightforward and you can start applying it. So I think it's time for some Q&A.
Yes, absolutely. We've got some questions in the Q&A. The first one coming from Roland. So can you define and use a bitrise variable for the phase description? So let's say you want to just like release it to 10% of your users. Can you describe that with the variable on Bitrise?
Yeah. So you can link that. So I did it manually, but you can create a environment variable and you can link that variable from there. So anything you can fill out manually, you can link it with any variable. I was showing the secret ones or the ones for signing, but you have another section which is just for the environment variables in general, not protected.
Got it. The next one is about push notification solutions. As Google services are not working in Huawei, which cross-platform push notification solution do you personally suggest?
Yeah, so we have a couple of solutions. So on Huawei, we use a different kit for push notifications. So we call it kit when it's one of those SDKs for different stuff, for maps, for push notifications, for any other stuff. There is we have a interactive panel on our platform where you can manage those notifications. And there is a tool that you can link with your server. If you are using your own server, you can use how it's called. I don't remember exactly the name. There is a way to do that. So I've been working with some clients who have this need. So they use this bridge server, and they were able to link the Huawei account with this special server, and it was doing everything through that. Why I don't remember the name right now, but
no worries.
I've been using several times, so it's quite straightforward.
Awesome.
But there is a way.
Next one. Are the phase start and end dates required for the phase release? Because as Roland mentions, they have the YML files under Git control. So does that mean that they will need to change it every time they want to release?
Sorry, I was already thinking about the question, but I missed the last one. Sorry.
So you can also, I think, check the Q&A tool, so you'll see the exact question.
Yeah, give me a sec.
So the main question is,
first one.
like what's people can like the questions. For me, it's on the top. Are the phase start and end dates required for phase release?
Yeah, they are definitely necessary. If you don't fill out them, you will have an error. So you can run the step, but at some point you're gonna find on the logs that something didn't work because you didn't set exactly which ones were the dates.
Next one is coming from Andres. When I set up the automatic publishing for Google Play Store, the first time you're publishing the app, it needs to be a manual publish. Is this the same on Huawei AppGallery?
That's a good point, because I missed that when I was explaining it. And yeah, I was meant to explain this, and the first one has to be manual. So it's the same way. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
Got it. How long is the app review process?
Right. So for just a single developer, if it's an app that is not really an outstanding app, like a big app is giving a lot of contribution to the country in this case, so our accounts, it's going to take probably like several days, like 5 days or so. If it's a big app, it's a big company, probably in 1 day or even less. So we can accelerate this thing.
Is this a manual process for each and every app version?
What do you mean?
So like, is it a manual process or an automated one inside Huawei?
You mean the review stuff or what?
Yeah, the review. So is it someone like personally checking and reviewing the apps?
That's a really good point as well. So we have a group of testers and some in charge of taking this in China. Some people also are in Europe, so they have to coordinate between them. So yeah, it's a manual one. But they also have some text, automatic text when you upload the app. So if you have any malicious code, anything, they're gonna find that out.
Got it. Can you show us, I think we skipped that part. Can you show where to find the required IDs, client ID, app ID in AppGallery?
Right. I haven't shown that because these are my personal ones, okay. But basically it's in the, let me tell you, because so if you see in the videos, you can find where I show exactly that part. I've been, so in the app information, here in this section is where you could see all of those details. So when you create so the first thing you have to do is, you can see I've got many apps here, just one in production. When you create an app, suddenly you're gonna have a app ID, client ID, and a key. So those three are located here in the app information. So in the video I mentioned, in both, in the ones on YouTube, you can find this information. It's blurry, but you're gonna identify that is in the app information page.
Cool. Next one is coming from Carol. Step inputs descriptions say that you can specify the time zone for the phase release, but in the step.sh, you are appending like this. Yeah, you see. So is that an error, or how does that work?
Yeah, that's a particularity. That's something I raised back in December, because I was trying to input something following what you just mentioned without the +000, and suddenly in the API failed. I got a conversation with the engineers, and they said to me it was going to be something changeable in the future, but they didn't change this feature yet. So yeah, so by now we have to follow this stuff. It's a bit annoying, but having this knowledge, we just have to do it. We just have to write it.
Awesome, thank you. Now I think the last one for now is coming from Borna. Have you planned to set output variables to the deploy to AppGallery step?
I haven't found the need to set any output by now, because what I do is that I simply show if it's successful or not. If I need to retrieve something, maybe in the future, if I find any way to add more stuff into this API, I will do that. But at the moment, the capability is open for the users. Don't allow to add more stuff. So there is no point to create any output.
Thanks, Fernando, again, for joining me for this event. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for joining.